Hello friends, we are going to start the application of biotechnology. Now in last video we shall learn about the several application of biotechnology, like the first one, the vaccination, or also it is also introduced the one of the gene insulin is introduced to the human beings. This insulin gene, or also it is the most important for the healthcare medicines. Biotechnology is also used in healthcare medicines. And now the next one importance of biotechnology is the biotechnology is used in agricultural purpose. Now the third important application of biotechnology is a gene therapy. The first of all, what is meant by the gene therapy? Now this gene therapy means the treatment of genetic diseases. Now the human beings, there are several diseases are formed. Some are the genetics, or some are the environmental causes, or some diseases are takes place, different type of diseases. Some are the genetic diseases, and now the treatment of the genetic diseases by introducing a proper genes into patient cells, and this term is called the gene therapy. Now the gene therapy means particular treatment or the diseased organisms. They can treat or introduce the proper gene into the patient cells, and this term is called the gene therapy. Now this gene, it is one of the fragments of the DNA, and now this DNA they can require or made of functional products or part of all the proteins. Now the genes in the gene therapy, the particular genes they can introduce into the organisms. Now this gene therapy, it is most if not well known diseases, several diseases. Now some genetic factors or some genetic diseases they can also causes several organisms. And now for example, there are some disorders with genetic disorders, like some diseases like the cystic fibrosis, hemophilia, and muscular dystrophy, and these are some changes in the gene therapy. Now these are the genetic disorder are also found in organisms. And now some are the other conditions like the high cholesterol level or high blood pressures, and this is one of the genetic factors, or some are the environmental factor is causing some diseases. Now these are some different diseases, and some diseases one of the proper genetic disease is identified, and they can introduce the proper gene to their organism or this cell of these patients. And now more than 5,000 different human diseases are also found, and these diseases causing a single genes. Now these 5,000 total number of the genetic diseases are found, and now the one single gene they can treat these defective genes. For example, the sickle cell anemia. Now this is one of the disorder, and also thalassemia, hemophilia, or fibrosis. These are the different disorders, and now this gene therapy is important role for these disorders. Now some gene therapy is used in many ways. Now this gene therapy is important, or they can using for several diseases and control with the help of the gene therapy. Now the first use of the gene therapy or replace this gene therapy is several many ways for the insertion of the individuals. Now the first one use of gene therapy is replace the or missing defective genes. Now the first one, this defective gene they can also introduce, or they can replacing the gene or missing gene from the organisms. Now the second one, application or use of the gene therapy to deliver genes that speed the destruction of the cancer cells. Now the third one, use of the gene therapy. The gene therapy is also used for the supply the genes that cause the cancer cells and also revert back to normal cells. Now these cancer cells, this can cause the supply of the specific gene for these cells, and now they can revert back to the normal cells. So much important use of the gene therapy. Now the vaccination, next one use is a vaccination. Now the vaccination means some vaccines are also introduced to human beings or human bodies, and they can also control the different diseases. And now this vaccine preparation is also formed with the help of some microorganisms, some dead early microorganisms like bacteria, viruses. Now these vaccines, the vaccination are delivered to the bacteria or viral genes. And now it is the most important use of the gene therapy, like the vaccinations, or some next one use deliver DNA to antigens expression and the generation of immune response. Now this DNA delivered to the DNA to antigen, they can express and they can also generate the immunity response or the resistance response to the generation. Now the next one application or next one use of gene therapy. The gene therapy is also used for supply of a gene for impair viral replication. The viral diseases they can causing, and that time some genes they can also improving the viral replication, insert the gene. And now the next one, they can also provide the gene that promote the growth of new cells, new tissues. Now they can promote the new tissues are also formed. Now this provide the gene that promote the growth of the new tissues. And now the last one, use of the gene therapy is deliver genes that stimulate the healing of damaged tissue. Now these are some uses of the gene therapy. Now this gene therapy is most important for these genetic diseases. Now these genetic diseases they can introduce or proper genes into their parents or their patient cells. Now introducing through this gene therapy. Now these there are two forms of the gene therapies. Forms of gene therapies. Forms of two forms of gene therapy. The first one, germ-line gene therapy. Germ-line gene therapy. And second one, somatic cell gene therapy. The second type, somatic cell gene therapy. These are the two forms of gene therapies. Now first one, germ-line gene therapy and somatic cell gene therapy. And these two types or two forms of the gene therapy. Now the first one, germ-line gene therapy, and second one is the somatic cell gene therapy. Now the germ cell in this method, generally the healthy gene they can be introduced into germ cell. This healthy gene they can introduce into the germ cells. Also germ cells like the sperms, eggs or early embryos, these are the germ cells, and this germ-line gene therapy is also takes place through these healthy genes. Now these these genes they can also transmitted of the modification of the genetic information to the next generation. Now this one of the important germline gene therapy. It is the most important form of the gene therapy because they can also using the germ cell. And now the second type of gene therapy is a somatic cell gene therapy. In this gene therapy, using the somatic cell for this gene therapy, now this type of the genes, in this type of the genes, they can introduce the somatic cell. Now the somatic cells like the bone marrow cells or hepatic cells, fibroblast cells, endothelium or the pulmonary epithelial cells, they can use for the this gene therapy. This part is used somatic cells or body cells, they can use for the gene therapy. Now these somatic cells, now these genes therapy is most important. They can also introduce the use for the central nervous system, endocrine cells or smooth muscle cells, also the blood vessels, walls. These are the region and some somatic cell gene therapy. It is also feasible option for clinical travels. Now we have already employed for the treatment of the different type of the disorders like the blood disorders or cancers or other diseases like hemophilia, sickle cell anemia. These are the different type of diseases are also occurring organisms, and some gene therapy is also utilizing different ways. Now this gene therapy, these two important forms of gene therapy, germ-line gene therapy and with the help of germ cell or somatic cell, the gene therapy is also used. It is the most important application of biotechnology.